The world-honored one. How is the nature of awareness ultimately manifested when there are objects of perception and when there are none? At the bamboo grove at the foot of Ultra Peak, the disciple Huiming could not help but request the Buddha's instruction. The Buddha pointed to an earthen bowl filled with clear water and said, "Look at the water in this bowl." Huiming gazed at the morning light piercing through the thin mist, falling upon the water's surface, reflecting the bamboo shadows on the shore and the drifting clouds in the sky. Ripples gently stirred, and the reflections shifted with them, yet they never clung nor adhered. When objects are present, the Buddha spoke slowly, the nature of awareness is like the water in this bowl reflecting things. The other day, when you followed me into the city to beg for alms, there was a quarrel between women in the marketplace, and a clay pot was shattered. Fragments splattered onto your monastic robe, yet you bent down to pick them up, fearing they might harm passers-by. In that moment, were you mired in anger? Huiming was taken aback, then clasped his hands and said, "I only thought of the danger of the fragments and did not give rise to anger." "This is it," the Buddha said with a smile. The clamor of the marketplace and the bustling crowds were all external conditions. You were aware that the fragments could harm, yet you were not stirred by the hostility of the quarrel. This is the wondrous function of the nature of awareness. It is like a bright mirror reflecting flowers. When the flowers wither and vanish, the pure substance of the mirror has never been stained by their bloom or decay. Previously, when you were listening to the sutra with the other monks, the monk next to you could not help but yawn. Although you heard it, your mind did not wander, and you remained focused on the meaning of the sutra. This, too, is the nature of awareness not being deluded by objects. Huiming bowed his head in contemplation. Suddenly, he remembered that last month, while descending the mountain to beg for alms, he encountered young nobles from wealthy families galloping on horses for spring outing. A horse's hoof nearly trampled a child by the roadside. At that moment, he quickly stepped forward and grabbed the reins, his mind solely focused on saving the child, without any regard for the arrogant expressions of the nobles. At the time, it felt like instinct, but now, upon reflection, he realized it was the natural, wondrous function of the nature of awareness in the presence of objects. A few days later, Huiming sat alone in the meditation hall. The sound of rain fell softly outside the window, and the room was so quiet he could hear his own breath. Suddenly, another doubt arose within him. After the rain stops, he goes to find the Buddha. "Teacher, when there is slight disturbance outside, where is awareness hidden? If I sit in meditation for a long time, I feel my mind gradually sinking, and sometimes I even become drowsy. Could it be that awareness disappears?" The Buddha leads him to the open ground after the startled snake. The sky after the drizzle is exceptionally clear, without a single cloud, only a gentle breeze brushing by. "Look at the emptiness." The Buddha points to the sky. When there is wind, it allows the wind to pass through. When there are clouds, it accommodates their drifting. When rain falls, it becomes the falling raindrops. Now, the wind has ceased. The rain has stopped, the clouds have dispersed, and the sky is clear. Has the emptiness changed? Huiming replies, "The emptiness remains as it is, neither increasing nor decreasing." The awareness in stillness is like this emptiness, the Buddha says calmly. When you sit in meditation, if you are not led astray by drowsiness or entangled by scattered thoughts, but simply quietly observe your breath, you will discover that clarity unobscured by distractions. Last night, while you were meditating in the chamber, you heard the sound of a mouse in the middle of the night. You knew it was there, yet you did not get up to look for it, nor were you disturbed by the sound. Instead, you continued to focus on observing your mind. That is the state of awareness. Returning to stillness. Huiming closes his eyes and recalls the tranquility of the previous night. When he first heard the mouse, he was momentarily distracted, wanting to see where it was. But as the thought arose, he suddenly remembered the Buddha's teaching of being aware of every thought and withdrew his attention, sensing the inner peace. At that moment, with no external circumstances to respond to, awareness remained steadfast and unmoving, like an ancient well without ripples. Still harboring doubts, he asks further, "Teacher, your disciple is dull-witted. Often, in stillness, I forget to be aware and am led by greed, anger, and delusion. In the absence of stillness, I sink into drowsiness. How can I ensure that awareness is never lost?" The Buddha picks up a water vessel beside him and pours water into a depression on a green stone. When the depression is full, he stops. Cultivation is like pouring water. It requires persistence. Pointing to the water, the Buddha says, "Every day when you rise, be aware of whether you generate discrimination based on the quality of food. When reciting scriptures, be aware of whether your mind wanders. When conversing with others, be aware of whether your speech is impatient." This is the practice for times of stillness. As for times without stillness, when sitting in meditation, if one feels drowsy, one should open their eyes wide and focus on the breath at the tip of the nose. If thoughts are scattered, they should silently count their breaths from 1 to 10. If a thought arises, they should start counting again, without forcing immediate tranquility. Simply recognizing distraction and drowsiness is the function of awareness awakening. Hearing this, Huiming suddenly felt as if enlightened. He recalled debating the Dharma with his senior brother the day before. His brother's words were sharp, and for a moment, Huiming felt a surge of anger, nearly leading to an argument. At that moment, he had forgotten to be aware. Yet, during meditation yesterday, he noticed himself thinking of his family but did not suppress it forcefully. He merely acknowledged the thought, and it gradually faded. He realized that awareness had never been far away. It was just that he had not constantly observed it. From then on, Huiming practiced as taught, while collecting alms. When he saw others dressed in fine clothes, he noticed a fleeting envy in his heart and then shifted his thoughts, remembering that the purpose of practice is to renounce attachment. That envy quietly dissipated. During meditation, when drowsiness crept in, he focused on his breath, and the heaviness slowly receded. One day, a sudden wildfire broke out on the forested mountain. Thick smoke billowed, and the flames, driven by the wind, spread rapidly, threatening the monastery. The monks frantically gathered their belongings. Huiming was organizing scriptures when he suddenly heard a child crying outside the hall. He looked up and saw a child from a nearby village who had unknowingly wandered into the monastery and was now paralyzed with fear amid the smoke. Chaos ensued. Some shouted to fight the fire. Others urged evacuation. The crackling of flames consuming vegetation and the cries of the people intertwined, yet Huiming's mind suddenly became crystal clear. He quickly stepped forward, picked up the child, covered the child's mouth and nose with his sleeve, and steadily retreated along the path by the foot of the wall. Along the way, embers landed on his monastic robe, yet he calmly brushed them away without the slightest panic. Once they safely reached the foot of the mountain, his elder brother noticed the scorched edges of his robe and exclaimed in amazement, "In such a critical moment, you remained so composed." Huiming smiled faintly. He clearly knew that in that moment, there were no extraneous thoughts, only the resolute decision to save a life. This was precisely the wondrous function of resolve in the face of circumstances. Several years later, Huiming had become a venerable elder respected by all the monks. He often gave teachings in the lecture hall. Once, a young bhikkhu asked about resolve, and Huiming pointed to the oil lamp on the platform, saying, "When the lamp is lit, it illuminates the scriptures on the platform. This is its function in relation to objects. Even if there are no scriptures to illuminate, the lamp remains bright. This is its stillness, when not relating to objects. Resolve inherently exists within each of us. There is no need to seek it externally. Simply be mindful in every moment, and like this lamp, it will remain clear and bright." After the discourse, Huiming sat alone in his meditation room. Moonlight flowed like water outside the window. He sat in stillness with eyes closed, free from joy and sorrow, without thoughts or concepts, yet ever clear and aware. He knew that he had finally accomplished what the Buddha described, the wondrous function in relation to objects and the stillness when not relating to objects, allowing the light of awareness to shine perpetually in the mind, spontaneous and unobstructed.